Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel for Juls Creations. Today I'm going to be showing you how to use heat shrink paper to make these beautiful flower drop earrings. First in this tutorial we'll talk more about shrink paper itself and how it works. Then we'll outline and color our shrink paper and cut out the shapes for our earrings. We'll use a heating gun to shrink and shape the flowers and leaves. Then we'll assemble our pieces into beautiful dangling flower earrings. So what is shrink paper? Heat shrink paper is a special plastic sheet called polystyrene that shrinks and thickens when it's heated. It's plastic on one side and has a papery texture on the other side. On that papery side, we can add colors such as pastels or ink and then shrink it to a variety of uses. Heat shrink paper can come in clear, frosted, or white, and today we'll be using the white. When heat is applied, for example using a conventional oven or a heat gun, the plastic will melt and shrink and get thick. Shrink paper can be used for jewelry, keychains, zipper pulls, custom buttons or pins, name tags, miniature art, holiday ornaments, bookmarks, book charms, magnets, game pieces, just to name a few. So if you're using an oven, you will want to lay the shrink paper onto a piece of parchment paper or aluminum foil under your piece. Optionally, you can place a heavy piece of vellum on top to help prevent the plastic from curling, and it gives the layer of protection from direct heat, which will keep it from discoloring. You'll want to preheat the oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 163 degrees Celsius, then bake for 2 to 4 minutes. The piece will come out shrunken, flat, and thicker when it's done, and then just remove the pan from the oven, then use a spatula to move the project to a cool plate and allow it to cool completely. I also like to use the heat gun so I can shape the piece while it's hot. And for the heat gun, you can experiment with different heat temperatures to see what you like. Start low and then get hotter. And if it's not heating fast enough, just turn it up a bit. If you're using a heat gun, be sure to use the embossing mat or something underneath to protect your table from the heat. To shape the plastic while it's hot, you can use tweezers with a ceramic tip, which will prevent the tweezers from getting too hot to handle. And then heat-resistant gloves are also an option to consider. And different heat shrink papers will have different shrink ratios, such as it can be a 2 to 1 or 3 to 1, a 4 to 1 or more. The paper I'm using now is a 5 to 1 ratio, so it will shrink down to 20% of its original size. The best way to color the shrink paper is by using a color medium such as pastels, colored pencils, alcohol-based inks, or permanent markers, all of which give different appearances. The heat shrink paper comes in various sized pages. You can even get them large enough to run through your inkjet printer. And if you're using heat shrink paper for the first time, you may want to try testing it with some different color mediums to see how it'll turn out. And the steps for using heat shrink paper is very simple. First, you'll want to draw out your shape or your picture, color in your shape or your picture, cut it out with scissors or a razor knife. If a hole is needed, such as for a key ring, make sure that you punch the hole out before heating it up. And a hole punch tool works the best. And you can heat it in the oven or use a heat gun so that you can heat it and shape it at the same time. It is very hot, so be careful. So since we're using heat shrink paper, we will need tools for that, plus additional tools to assemble our flower drop earrings. The tools that we'll need for this project are a heat gun to apply heat to the shrink paper, an embossing mat to protect our table from the heat. Optionally, you might want to consider some heat-resistant gloves, but they're not really required. You'll want a metal ball stylus approximately 7 centimeters in size, and some ceramic reverse tweezers. And the ceramic tweezers will keep the handle from getting too hot to hold. You'll also want a colorless pastel blending pencil, or you can use a blending stump. A pastel pencil will smooth our colors together, removing most lines, and blend the colors nicely. We'll need some scissors to cut out our shapes, and you'll want a single hole punch that can make a hole that is no smaller than 3 millimeter but no larger than 6 millimeters, so somewhere in between there. And then to help us attach our jewelry findings together, you'll need scissor clamps, some round needle nose pliers, and a pair of flat jewelry pliers. For our supplies, we will need one sheet of heat shrink paper in white. The page should be at least 6 by 8 inches or larger. You'll need our printed template for flower drop earrings, which you can download free from my blog site at julsblog.com, and then just print it onto plain paper. We'll need 2 fishhook ear wires in gold. The ball is optional. And we'll need 6 figure-8 connector links that are 7 by 3 millimeter in gold. Now these also come in solid pieces, but instead we want the ones that have the opening on each end, like a double-sided jump ring. We will need 2 2-inch eye pins in gold and 2 glass pearl beads, approximately 5 millimeter. This will be the center of the flower, so you can use other round beads, or if you like a crystal or a colored bead. And then we'll need our pastel pencils. We'll want dark purple, dark green, mauve, and yellow. And for the dark green, mauve, and yellow, you can also use pastel chalks if you prefer. But you will need the dark purple in a pencil so we can make the veins on our flowers and leaves. Okay, let's get started. So here is our printed template, and I wanted to show you down here is an example of how we'll be coloring our flower petals and leaves. We'll be coloring pink on the petals and yellow in the center, and the pink could be like a mauve or whatever you like. You can use whatever colors you like. There's going to be a hole punch in the middle of our flower, and on the leaf there'll be a hole punch at the top. We'll use a green for the leaf, and we'll use purple to make some veins on the leaf and also on the flowers. And right now it looks a bit strange, but when it shrinks down, you'll see that the imperfect lines will look more natural in the flower. So those are the colors we'll be using. So let's start by grabbing our shrink paper, and you'll notice there are two sides to it, a glossy smooth side and a rough paper side, which we can use to draw or write on. So with the paper side up, we lay it over our template, making sure that all the shapes fit in the page. And now we're going to outline the shapes, and you can use a white pastel pencil if you like, but I like to use the same colors I'll be coloring it in with. So for the flowers, I'll start with outlining them with a mauve color, and then I'm going to draw over the outline. And you don't want to make it perfect because flower petals are not perfect. So as they say, imperfectly perfect. So you'll notice that none of the petals touch the middle, and that's because we're going to put a hole in the middle. And if the hole is too close to the edge, then it will most likely tear or crack when we shrink the paper. So we'll add the hole after we cut out the flower, and that'll make it easier to reach. And make sure that it is in the center of the petals. So right now we're going to color everything. So I'm going to start with the flowers. I'm going to color the middle with some yellow, working a little bit into the petals. And now I'll do this one. It doesn't have to be perfect. We like variety. And then let's fill in the pink or mauve. Now I want to try to avoid having lines when it's done, but if you keep all the strokes going the same direction, it will look more uniform. So let's try to fill in the areas that we're missing color just by going over it very lightly until it's completely filled in. You can go as light or dark as you want. And I'm going to cross over the yellow just a little bit so that when we blend it, it'll blend really smoothly. All right, so we're going to use our pastel blender pencil. And you can use the blending stump if you prefer. It does seem to pick up a little bit of the color, so I prefer the blender pencil. And the blender pencil also leaves that deep, rich color when you're done. This particular blender is a Prismacolor colorless blender, PC1077. So where the colors come together, I'm just going to rub them together. And can you see how much smoother that looks? All right, now we've got the centers. Now we just want to blend our petals and try to get rid of some of those lines. It just makes the colors blend more smoothly, and you can do lines or maybe do some circles with the blender to get it smoothed out. And do you see these lines here? The blend will blend that all out. So here's the first flower, and I'm going to do the other off camera, and then I'll show you how to do the leaves. Be right back. Okay, so we've got those two flowers blended. Now for the veins of the flower, we want them to stand out. So we didn't blend those in. We want the flower to be smooth, and then we'll add our veins afterwards. We're just going to draw some lines starting from the center where our dot is, and then radiating out into the petal. About 4 or 5 lines on each petal. And I rotate the flower for each petal so that my pencil can flow along easily without having to reposition my hand each time. 4, 5, there. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And one more petal. And now you can see a little of what it's going to look like. So now let's work with our leaves. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to outline it and color it in and blend it. And let's start with a dark green. We're just going to outline it and we're going to color it in. Then I'll do the rest of those in a minute. But let me show you the rest of this one first. So let's blend our color. And you'll see there's a little bit of pink on the blender from the flour. I could have cleaned it off, but that's okay. That makes it more natural. So now we're going to add our veins. And again, starting from the dot, and we'll put the first line right down the middle, and that'll be the main branch. Then we're going to do little veins branching off of the middle vein and toward the point of each leaf, like this. And then I also like to put some purple in the middle, just a little bit, just to give it some depth or shade. And then that part I do like to blend in just a little while not disturbing the lines for the veins. And right now it doesn't look like much of anything, but when you shrink it down, you'll see that all those colors will come together. And I want this shadow to go all the way down to the end. So now you see that the shadow part is blended in, but the veins are still solid lines. And I'm going to do the other three, and then I'll be right back. All right, so now we have our flowers and our 4 leaves, and the next step is going to be cutting them out. So I'm going to separate these just to make them easier to cut out. And when you're cutting, make sure to follow the line and avoid going all the way to the middle, because remember we need to leave room for a hole there. Otherwise, it could cause problems when shrinking it down. Also, when cutting, you want to make sure that you don't leave any uncolored areas on your flower, because that will turn out white and it will really stand out. Okay, now we're going to do our leaves. And one way to cut them is you can just go all the way around both sides and then just snip out the little pieces. Or the way I like to do it is to just cut it following the line, which seems to cut much easier. We want the end at the bottom of the leaf to be pointed, but we want the top to be just slightly rounded, so you can trim it down a little bit if needed. Now we need to hole punch these. And if you look at the template, you'll see the hole is toward the top, but there's a little space down from the edge. And we need that little space because if the hole is too close to the edge, it may tear or crack when we shrink it. So put the hole just a little away from the edge and center it across the top of the leaf. And it gets kind of stuck on here once the hole is punched. And then for the flower, we want the hole right in the middle. And now we're ready to shrink our flowers. So let's grab our embossing pad and we're going to do one piece at a time. We want the shiny side down, so the color side up. And we're going to use our ball tool to shape it as we heat it. And of course our ceramic tweezers. Now if you were to just use metal tweezers, they do get too hot and they could burn your hand. You could use some heat-safe gloves for this, but if you use the ceramic tweezers, the heat will stay on the ceramic ends, so the metal part won't be so hot to handle. Just a word of warning, do not touch the plastic while it's hot. It's not only hot, but it's sticky, so it may stick to your skin until it cools. So just make sure that you're doing all the touching and shaping with your tools and not your hands. So we'll be using our ceramic tweezers to hold the flower down in the middle and just a little bit outside the hole. And then as it heats, it's going to wrinkle up and then flatten out. And when it's flat, we're going to shape it while it's still hot. So I'll show you. So we need our heat gun, and I don't know quite what setting this is on, just kind of a medium, I guess. You can try different settings and see what works best for you. Start low and then get hotter if it's not working for you. Now I'll be dubbing the sound so you won't be hearing the heat gun and you'll be able to hear the instructions. I'm going to turn this on and hold my tweezers open toward the middle of the flower and apply the heat to the flower. And it'll take a few seconds before it gets hot enough to melt. Just keep the tweezers in place and see how it'll wrinkle up and then it'll flatten out. Now normally at this stage we'd go ahead and shape the flower while it's hot, but for this tutorial I'm going to let it cool to this stage so I can kind of explain this next step before we continue. We'll need to work very quickly to shape it while it's hot because it cools very quickly also. And what we want is for the petals to curve downward like a dangling flower. So the body of the flower will curve down, but then the tips, we want to have those curve outward just a little bit. Basically, we'll be doing the flower upside down, and then we'll turn it over when we assemble it all. All right, here we go. So color side up. Now once the flower is hot again, we'll use our medium-sized ball stylus to press down into the center of the flower, pressing it deep into the pad, and that will form a cup. And then while it's still hot, I'm using the opposite end of the tweezers to bend the flower upward and then slightly curve the tip outward. So like I said, it cools very quickly. And yes, I'm handling it because after you work with the plastic a few times, you'll know when it's cool enough to safely handle it. So it'll look a little bit like this. And then when we add our pearl and eyelet into the little hole, it'll dangle like this, and we'll assemble these later. Now for our leaves, we'll be holding it down with our ceramic tweezers so that each point of the tweezer is on one side of the leaf, like this. We heat the paper and shrink it, and then to shape the leaf, we grab our ball stylus and then just slightly press down on the top to hold it down, and then use our tweezers and grab the tip and just very gently push the tip inward to create a small curve. So here are all our pieces shrunken and shaped. We have 4 leaves and 2 flowers. And now to assemble our jewelry, let's grab our scissor clamps and our flat jewelry pliers. So when we open a jump ring, first we're going to find the opening, and then we're going to clamp our scissor clamps on the opposite side of the opening at a right angle to the opening. We'll clamp down the scissor clamps and then, using our pliers, grab the end with the opening and gently twist it open. Now you can see how that's open here. Now we're going to take one of our leaves and find the hole, and then just slide the hole onto the jump ring. Then we take our pliers and close the ring back up. And now it's really important that there's no opening in the ring so that the leaf can't slide off. So now we've got one little dangly here. Now if you find that the hole of one of your leaves is too small, you won't be able to use the hole punch again, but we can use a little jewelry drill to drill it, or we can use a jewelry bead reamer. So let me show you how these work. So here we have a little hand drill, and these are pretty inexpensive. You can find them everywhere. They come with different size bits. So we just line up the drill where we want to put our hole and twist it while we push. Almost there. And we have to be very careful not to get it too close to the edge because we don't want it to break. And another option is the jewelry bead reamer. These are also very inexpensive and usually come in a set. This one is the long skinny one and it's gritty, so it will actually push through as we twist and it will sand down the inside of the hole. So we just slide the reamer into the hole that we started and twist back and forth as we gently push it through. Be careful not to push it too far because it'll make too large of a hole. We only need the hole large enough to slide in our jump ring. But we also need the hole big enough so the leaf will dangle freely from the jump ring. All right, so we grab our jump ring again, cinch down the scissor clamps at the opposite side of the opening at a right angle, twist it open, slide on our leaf, and we want to make sure it dangles freely. Otherwise, we need to make the hole just a little tiny bit bigger. So go ahead and add the other jump rings to each of the 4 leaves. All right, now on 2 of our leaves, we're actually going to add a second jump ring to the end. So just on 2 of them. There's one. We're going to do one more. Open the rings, slide on the other leaf piece. All right, and it's all loose and dangly just the way we like it. So for our flower at the end of the eyelet, we're going to add another little loop to hang it with. So we grab our round needle nose pliers and pinch them at the tip of the wire about here. And you want to hold the wire really tightly as we wrap the wire around so that it won't slip out. So grab that wire and firmly push the wire around the plier. And then when you can't go any further, switch the other plier and just keep going until you have a nice circle like that. Now we want to make the circle centered with the wire instead of off to one side. So grab the loop on the opposite side of the opening and pinch and bend the wire backward like this. And then you can straighten it out a little bit with flat pliers. And let's do it on this one also, grabbing with the pliers. Wrap it around till we can't go any further. Switch sides of the pliers, keep going, and then bend it back to make it centered on the wire. And then again, we can flatten it out a little with flat pliers. So these are almost ready to hang onto our earrings. And we just have one last step before we put them all together. On the two leaves that have the two jump rings on them, we're going to connect that to the flower. So take a leaf and find the loop that the leaf is on and open it up, and then add the flower and then close up the ring again. And now our leaf and our flower should both be on the same loop. And then do the same on the other earring. All right, so now we are ready to assemble our earrings. So let's grab one of our earring hooks and with our pliers, just twist the side with the opening a little bit, and then slide on the flower part, and then slide on the leaf part. And we're going to use our needle nose pliers because they're skinnier and easier to reach that little wire. So we grab the wire of the earring hook and twist it to close it. And again, making sure there's no gap where the wires can slide out. And then this one is done. Now we'll do the same with the other earring. And now we have our adorable drop flower earrings. I also wanted to show you this little trick I saw online, and it's repurposing those little closures from baby wipes. I have two of these and they're back to back. So I used some E6000. I glued them together in the middle and then also glued the bottom lid shut. And there's only one lid that's open. So now I have this little pocket that I can put things in, like my findings for this project. You can use it for whatever you want, findings, a pill box, pins, rubber bands, whatever. Just one more way to recycle. And here again are our beautiful drop flower earrings, completed and ready to be worn. And here are a few ideas you can use to make your flowers different. You can make your own flower template with different petals. Some petals can be pointed or some rounded or even some scalloped. You can use different shaped leaves, longer leaves, fatter leaves, etc. You can use different colors for the flowers and veins. You can try different mediums to get different results. You can use paper with different shrink ratios for different sized flowers. You can use different centers for the flowers, such as crystals or round beads. You can add another flower above or below to add a second tier. You can add a charm to dangle at the bottom of your flower. You can cut the eye pin shorter to make small single flowers and then hang those on a necklace. And I'm sure you can find other ways to make your flowers different. And if you come up with an idea that you'd like to share, feel free to leave a note in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. And if you like this video, please give a thumbs up. And if you have any questions or video ideas, be sure to leave a comment below. And subscribe if you'd like to be notified when I release any new videos. And a big thank you to my subscribers. I appreciate you. Down below, there's a link to the free download of my printable template for these earrings. There's also a link to all of my Juls Creation links that you can check out below. Enjoy and never be bored.